Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Create Connects information session focusing on engagement with young people. My name is Nick Santoro, and I work at Create New South Wales in the Arts Funding and Development team, and I will be co-facilitating today's session with Sarah Rose, who is also from the Arts Funding and Development team at Create New South Wales. Before beginning the session, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today from Dharawal country, and I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining the session today. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the various lands people are joining today's session from. Always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So up on the screen at the moment are the main points we'll be discussing today. We'll be having a quick overview of the funding opportunities that are available through Create New South Wales and discussing tips for writing a strong application. We'll be looking at Create New South Wales key priority areas with a focus on projects and program proposals that engage or are targeted towards young people. And we'll be hearing from two successful applicants who had projects funded in the previous round that engaged with young people. So up here you can see some of the funding opportunities that Create New South Wales has available as part of the Arts and Cultural Funding Program. There's Creative Career Projects, individual project funding and organisation project funding, as well as annual organisation funding. And not up on the screen at the moment, but also a good one to look out for is the small project grants quick response, which are grants of up to $5,000 or in between $500 and $5,000 for individuals and groups. Um, a change as well that's worth bringing up with organisation funding is that there's no longer a local government authority's separate grant round. LGAs can apply to the organisation funding round as well. Those guidelines for each of those funding opportunities are up on the site if you want to have a bit more of a closer look at those. But creative career projects and individual project funding, they're both up for 60,000, but you can apply above the cap as well, up to a certain point in the round. And then annual organisation funding, I believe, is up to 200,000. So a recap of the round that's just been the 21-22 round two. There was a total of 300 applications that were received, and 122 of those applications were funded. So there was 70 organisations and 52 individuals or group projects that were funded previously. And a list of those recommended projects and programs can be found on the Create New South Wales site under funding decisions, and that can be a handy thing to look at to get an idea of what's been supported through the round.
Today we're joined by two incredible artists who will be sharing some tips on how to make a strong and compelling application to Create New South Wales Arts and Cultural Funding Program. Our two guest speakers today are Sydney-based singer-songwriter Hollie Cole and Cadi McCarthy, who is a professional dancer and founder of Catapult Dance Choreography Hub in Newcastle. So welcome to Creative Connects and congratulations on your recently funded applications. Both of your projects were noted for their engagement and impact on young people. So we're interested to hear a bit more about how your projects conveyed this and how you found the application writing process. But firstly, can you each tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Hi, my name is Cadi McCarthy. I'm currently on Awabakal and Warramai lands here in Newcastle. I am the director and founder of Catapult Dance Choreographic Hub, which is based in Newcastle. And we are an organisation for choreographers and professional dancers and multidisciplinary artists. We have a number of different strands to what we do. We have a professional company structure which employs professional dancers and mid-career choreographers to create new works. We have the Flipside Project, which is our youth initiative, which is engaging young people to work with established choreographers to teach them about choreography. We have the Propel Residency Program, which is for mid-career and emerging artists to create work in our space. And we also have our community outreach program, which really addresses young people in our community. And this project that I'll talk to you about today is based on that outreach program.
Hey, I'm Hollie. I'm a musician, a Sydney-based singer-songwriter. So what I do is pretty much write music, record music, and release it. And then I also direct and edit and write a lot of my music videos. So I'm pretty across all the creative projects that come along with being a musician and writing music. So that's it.
Great, thank you both for introducing yourselves. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what to do before starting an application. So firstly, read the relevant arts and cultural funding program guidelines, which can be found on our website. Make sure that you check that you meet the eligibility requirements of the program you are hoping to apply for. And ensuring that this program is a right fit for you and what you would hope to do by reviewing whether the relevant round objectives align with the aims of your project or program. Review the additional resources and fact sheets that we have available to help you with your application, which are all accessible via our website. And definitely allow enough time to complete your application thoroughly and accurately, and source the relevant support materials to help strengthen your application. Some other things that we like to advise on is familiarize yourself with the Smarty Grant system and create an account early. Perhaps you would like to download a PDF of the form so you can prepare your answers and gather the support material. Noting that the support material is quite important to the application, and this can include things such as letters of support, confirmation letters, images, and documentation of your work, as well as do research. So have a look at what's been previously funded and all of the resources that we have available on our Create New South Wales site, and consider the benefit of your project to the New South Wales arts and culture and the audiences you'll engage with. So I have a question for you both. Do you have any tips on what things you can do before starting a grant application? Or can you share any of the strategies that you implemented before applying and how you prepared?
For me, I guess one of the biggest things is just making sure that I'm applying for the right grant, because there's obviously a few different grants, and making sure that you're applying for the one that's most relevant to you and the most viable for you. And then I would also say make sure that you sit down with the plan that you have and see exactly where you would use the money if you were to be successful, because I know it can be like really exciting and enticing to be like, oh, that's like a good chunk of money, I could use that in my career, generally speaking. But I think it's important to sit down with the plan that you have, or if you don't have a solid plan yet, then make a solid plan of exactly how you would be spending the money if you were successful, and that can kind of inform what you do in terms of how you go about your grant application.
Yeah, I would second that. Planning, I think, is really, really vital before you even start writing. For me, I set out exactly what I'd like to do and almost a timeline of what that would look like. And I think most importantly for programs is ensuring that your partners or your support partners are really contacted early and understand the project and what you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to do, and get them on board and excited about the program as well, because then that's going to lead to really successful support letters and support material. And it helps once the project is up that those partners are already really aware of what's going on and what your timeline and plan is.
Great. Thank you both for sharing your tips on how you prepared your application before you started it. Something else to consider before starting an application is also which art form board you would like to assess your application. So an art form advisory board consists of members of leading arts and cultural practitioners and professionals within the industry who are selected by expression of interests, which is held annually. The purpose of these art advisory boards is to assess applications made to the Arts and Cultural Funding Program, to provide recommendations and advise the Minister on strategic directions for the sector. When filling out your application, you will be asked which art advisory board you would like to assess your application, and your choice should be based on the main art form of your project or program you are proposing to deliver. If your project or program involves more than one main art form, think about the context in which the project will be taking place, who your audience is, and or what are you best known for. At Create New South Wales, we have 10 different art form advisory boards, which consist of Aboriginal Arts and Culture Board, Classical Music, Opera and Choral Board, Contemporary Music Board, Dance and Physical Theatre Board, Festivals Board, Literature, Multi-Arts Board, Museums and History Board, Theatre and Musical Theatre Board, as well as a Visual Arts Board. So a question for you both, which art form board did you choose and why?
My art form board is in dance. What we're doing here at Catapult is producing 2 children's works. One's for 4 to 8-year-olds and one's for 8 to 12-year-olds. So because we're creating a dance work and going into schools and working with young people, that was the most obvious choice.
Yeah, for me as a musician, contemporary music was pretty much the choice from the start.
Great. So the next thing that we're going to discuss in this webinar is addressing the assessment criteria. So with Create New South Wales criteria, we often assess across merit, impact, and budget. And these are what the assessors will use to judge and assess your application. Note when responding to these criteria, keep your responses clear and concise. And some of the tips that we often suggest is to tell the story about your project or work. Use plain English. In most cases, dot points are also okay to use. Make sure you really articulate and elaborate on why you want the grant. Ensure that you are describing your purpose clearly. How does your work or project contribute to your practice and the overall arts ecology? Make sure to include strong support material and ensure that the images that you do include are high quality. Don't assume the assessors know you or your work, and make sure you put as much information in there as you can. Avoid any assumption. And also ensure that your budget is balanced. As I just mentioned, the 3 assessment criteria in your application form is the merit, impact, and budget. The merit section is specifically where you provide information about your project, your reasons for undertaking it, and your intended outcomes. So a question for you both, can you provide any hints on how to best describe a project with a focus on presenting an attention-grabbing rationale, and how to express how a project contributes to your chosen art form?
I think for me, the biggest thing I would say is try to pinpoint what makes your project different. I guess as a musician, for me, saying, I'm going to make an EP that I want people to really love is kind of the idea for every musician. So that's not really going to make me stand out. So I guess what makes my EP different, or what it brings to the music industry that doesn't exist as much just yet. And I think, for me, I focused heavily on the fact that my music is targeted towards the LGBTQ plus community, and how obviously there's a lack of diversity and a need to increase representation. So what made, I guess, my project a little bit different is that it was specifically tailored to that audience, and it had that specific purpose. So I was able to explain that in my project. And also the other tip that I would have is, and something that I had to learn when applying for grants, is don't fluff it up too much with, you know, this eloquent language and trying to make it sound really good. Like, just be really specific and really concise, and just get to the point, which is what I struggle to do sometimes. But getting to the point and being specific is, yeah, super important. So that would be a big tip that I would have.
And I second that. I think being clear and having clarity in exactly what you want to do is really important. Sometimes even I know that I get caught up in verbose language, or really trying to articulate what I want to do. But the simpler that is, the better for the board to read and for the assessors to read. And if it's really pinpointed as to exactly what you want to do, I think that really helps in application. And I think you need to be really passionate about what it is that you're trying to do and convey that across through the application, which I know is sometimes hard through writing, but to really pinpoint exactly what benefits it's going to have for the community, and what benefits, in our case, what benefits it's going to have for young people in my region and in my area, and what they're going to gain from being part or involved in this project. So for me, we are creating 2 new works, and I knew when we were writing this application that young people had been so heavily affected by COVID, and being able to see performances has been really difficult and really limiting for them, and to not have that access to arts and culture in that kind of way. So I was trying to formulate a program that we could go into schools, because I knew schools coming out for excursions had become more difficult. It's opened up a little bit now, but trying to find ways that we could really bring the art and culture to them and their community, and really start to engage them, not only in viewing a performance, but also participating in workshops and providing resources to teachers and families as well. So I think that may be why we stood out, because we were trying to really find ways to engage with young people across the Hunter.
Great, thank you both for that insight. And then the next question I want to ask you in terms of the merit section is, how did you describe your practice as an artist or arts cultural worker? And what support material did you provide to evidence this?
I'll start.
You can go.
I was formerly the artistic director of Buzz Dance Theatre in Perth, which is no longer running in that same form. And so a lot of my support material was my previous works that I've done with young people. Also, the work that I've been doing here in Newcastle with the community and my community access programs, to really outline what sort of works that we've been doing and what sort of impact we have in the region. And I think that's really important, to have that high quality support material through video, or outlining exactly sort of your own practice and how that's going to benefit the community that you're working in. As well as, you know, really outlining your passions and dreams as a maker or an artist, and how that's going to affect the community around you, I think is really important, and what you're bringing to the project from yourself.
I agree with everything. I think, yes, support material was super important, especially being a musician and being able to kind of talk about the merit and the audience that I was reaching, the having sold support material, so linking a press kit where it has all of the information about the audience you're reaching and how many people are engaging and how it's helping people or how it's affecting the audience. That was really important. And then also links to previous work, like music videos and songs, and also having support material in the form of letters from my management, from the producers that I was to be working with on this EP, from other members of my team, just from everyone around me that's engaged in this project, making sure, that the advisory board knew that everyone was on board and they could vouch for what I was saying for myself. And so, and also just making sure that the board is kind of aware of the audience I'm trying to reach and the purpose and the reason behind why I'm doing it and why I'm passionate about doing this project.
And I want to second that. We made sure we had an event planner sorted out that was in a PDF format of exactly the timeline and how we'd go about going about the work and the milestones that we wanted to reach. Ours is going over 2022 and 2023. Also, we had the biographies of all the artists that we were engaging. And understandably, things shift and change, but to have the caliber of the artists that were working on the project was really important. Excuse me. I was going to say one more thing and it's fallen. And the support letters, crucially important to have them already at your disposal before the last day, and I think that's why you need to be really planned. We were linking with councils, we were linking with education programs, so making sure you had those letters of support from your partners is really crucial to the application and gives it strength that you do have partners behind you and working with you to deliver the program.
Great. So the next question I want to ask you is in regards to the impact section, which is where you explain why your project is important and how you will measure its success. Can you both share how you described the outcome or outcomes of your projects? For example, through engagement, audience numbers, diversity and inclusion strategies as examples?
Yeah, so I pretty much tried to touch on all of those elements. I tried to talk about, the shows that I've managed to sell out and the audiences that are interested in this project, and audience numbers. Luckily, like as a musician, you can look at statistics and see analytics of who you're reaching and the idea that I was reaching young people. And I think, again, that comes with the support material being really crucial in being able to vouch for what you're writing in your application. And then, I tried to talk a lot about, as I've mentioned a few times already, the audience and the purpose was very much linked because, I was reaching, my LGBTQ plus people, and my purpose was linked with that audience because I really wanted to continue reaching them with this project and make sure that I'm contributing to an increase in visibility and diversity. So it's everything within my application. I tried to make sure was really linked and all supported by the support documents.
And I can second that through dance. I mean, what we're trying to do is create a program where young people can see professional dance, which, has been really difficult over the past couple of years with COVID. But on top of that, they get to participate in workshops. And then there's education resources for teachers. So it's sort of really educating and engaging and reaching a whole diverse range of people. We're going to be doing our programs to holiday programs and daycares and schools and a really broad spectrum of young people across the Hunter. And I think because we're looking at Lake Macquarie, Newcastle and the Greater Hunter as our region for engagement, we can reach a large demographic of young people and our programs are targeted. There's one for 4 to 8-year-olds, and then there's one for 8 to 12-year-olds. So the idea is that they can eventually just travel together to reach a whole school environment, or separately they can also reach through holiday programs and different activities. And so for me, it's really important, and for Catapult, that not only do the young people get to view work, but also get the opportunity to participate in it and be creative themselves, and understand that beauty of movement and dance and how that feels in your body. But also for educators or facilitators or parents or guardians to be given resources so they can continue activities afterwards, and to keep that joy of dance going. And hopefully in the future that builds audiences for dance in general across New South Wales. That sometimes the hardest thing to do is go and see your first show, or to have access, which is really mostly important, have access to see this kind of work. So our ticket prices are very, very low, and that was factored into our budgeting. That meant it was accessible to everyone, and all young people and families can get the chance to see a live work that's actually targeted to them and is relatable to them. So one of our programs for the little ones is called At the Beach, and it's about a young girl who's scared to dive under the waves. And a lot of young people have those sort of fears. And then our older program is called Fragile, and it's about trying to find your place in the world and how to overcome bullying and a whole range of different things that are prevalent in young people's lives. So I think that's important as well, to have subject matter that's really linked to where their lives are at, and talking to the young people about things that are relevant to them.
Thank you for sharing. And then the second follow-up question I have to that section is, what tools or methodologies do you use to measure the success of your projects?
We do audience feedback and education and family feedback forms, which I think is really important. We have lots of Q&As, so after each show we're going to have a Q&A with the audience, so it'd be really nice to hear directly from the young people how they engaged in the work. I also have a lot of my peers or professional artists come in through the process as well, to really view the work and provide feedback, but then afterwards as well, I think is really important to my own growth as an artist, but also to the growth of the work. So we use a range of different questionnaires. We get feedback from our partners as to the success or what we need to work on, which I think is also really vital to help build those relationships for the future and those partnerships for the future. And so there's a lot of ongoing sort of meetings and milestones and things that we're reaching all the time. And then obviously at the end of the project, there'll be a very clear process of understanding how the project went and how we can improve in the future, getting that feedback to be able to build the program stronger. I mean, my aim with this program is that it will be alive for many, many years, and this is just the starting point.
I think that question is a little bit harder to answer for me, in the way that there's obviously different avenues that you can assess the outcome of music, but I think the main two are obviously the analytics when it comes to streaming and numbers of people watching, but I think the more important one is kind of the same in the way of audience feedback. Obviously, I'm not sending out forms to see if people like my song, but I definitely am engaging with my audience quite frequently, pretty much daily. So on social media, I'll talk to people quite a lot and hear feedback from them about how they enjoyed my music or made them feel something or helped them through something. And the same with my music videos. The last kind of thing I did in relation to like visual stuff was a 7-8 part music video series, and so it had extended scenes and that kind of stuff, and that was really nice because it was like a LGBT lesbian love story, and so there was a lot of people that saw that representation that they hadn't before in that kind of form, and engaged with it and messaged me, and we chatted about how it affected them, how it affected me to make. And so definitely the way that I usually measure how my music or how a release goes is really just hearing from people, and I think that's a super lucky part of being a musician.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, really amazing to hear both of your approaches to merit and impact, and how you link those different parts of the application across, from bringing your priority engagement into the merit, and how you made your project sort of stand out in the funding round. Both really exciting sounding outcomes. I've got a question here, sort of asking out about to do with budgets. It might be cool for people to hear any tips for preparing a strong and transparent budget, or if there's any sort of anything that you did leading up to preparing it, the process of gathering quotes and things, and calculating artist fees, and I guess we'll start with you, Cadi. How'd you go with the budget?
I think budgets are always some of the toughest things to sorry, to work out. We work with MEAA and the Live Performance Act in regards to how much artists get paid, and we work with artists full time in the space, and so we need to factor in creative development as well as performance fees for our artists, which are at obviously Live Performance Act rates, and I think that's important to know that. Same with our costume designers and our set designers, getting a set made. So all those things have to be factored in. If you need to get APRA rights, public liability insurance, and all the risk assessment attached to the works that you want to do. So there is a lot of background work that you need to do in regards to outlining that budget. Also, if you're partnering with other organisations, what sort of support are they offering? If it's in kind, or if it's through their own funding. Lucky enough for us, we were funded for one of these works by one of the councils, and then received some more funding from someone else. So how does that all measure up? Because once you do add up all the set design or composers and artists full time, it does add up quite quickly, and ensuring that all your costs are covered in that way, or there is a way to make the budget work for the project as well. Both of our shows have 4 artists or 4 dancers, so their fees are really crucial in the budget, and making sure that that's okay, and linked directly to MEAA and performing the Live Performance Act. Yeah, I think also I think that, there's probably, that's the most, from an organisational budgeting, which is different to individual programs, you need to include your whole year's budget. So as well as the program, your project within that. So it does take a long time to look at your year budget and how the project fits within that. And I think that that's really something that you need to spend a lot of time on to ensure that you get that all organised as you're going along.
Yeah, they can be real hefty documents, those budgets. Good thing to sort of consider early on, do you reckon, or is there a specific stage that you sort of start doing a budget in?
Well, obviously, on an organisational level, we're keeping our budgets up to date all the time, but there's a lot of forward planning as well in that budgeting. So I feel for me, the budget is happening at the same time as I'm compiling the information. So right from the beginning, we're looking at budgets, ensuring that our budget works within our organisation, but also for the project, making sure that we have the in-kind support that we need, and making sure that our partners are on board. And I think that's why it's really important to have those discussions with partners really early on, or if there's other funding bodies that you're applying for the same project, to bolster it and how that's working. We're linking with education as well, so having those conversations with education or the other partners as to how the project's going to work for them and what's the best way forward.
Wow, thanks for sharing that about the organisation budget. Lots of different moving parts with the partners and everyone involved. Yeah, do you have any tips, Holly, from the individual applicant perspective about budget?
Yeah, I mean, listening to that, yeah, it sounds like a lot more work. Thankfully for the individual, you kind of just have to look at the project budget. And so my biggest piece of advice would be create like a timeline of um, the project and how it's going to be implemented, and then really try to be specific about every single detail of expenses throughout it. So if for me, I plan on recording further away from home, so that would mean that there's travel expenses and there's accommodation expenses and food expenses. Like, try to be really specific, because I think that is a healthier budget, and it shows that you've not just been like, oh, this will probably cost this will probably cost this, but really having a timeline and marking next to each activity exactly what it's going to cost, with as much detail as you can. I think that shows a more solid budget and shows that you've thought of the process as much as you can. Obviously, some things are a little harder to estimate, but what I did is, having made EPs before and worked with the producers that I planned to work with before, I was able to get the artist fees and things like that sorted pretty early, because a lot of the people that I'm working with are people that I previously worked with, which was definitely helpful. But yeah, I agree with the idea of trying to get quotes and things as early as possible in the process, because people won't always respond very quickly. So making sure that you can reach out as early as you can and try and get the budget sorted as soon as you're, before you're starting the application, really.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, great advice on the timeline of the budget, using that budget to tell the story of the activity. Yeah, I wanted to ask as well, sort of now that we've talked about merit and impact and the budget there as well, from your experience when you're working on your applications, if there were any sort of particular spots that you found challenging or difficult in the process, any parts that were tricky, and if there were, sort of how you got around that and worked through the if there were challenging parts overall in applying.
I think the most challenging part is that everything's within a word count. And I know for artists, we love to talk about our work or talk about how that work's going to be viewed. And, what I do for me is I write down everything that I have in my head or what I want to say. And then the most challenging thing is, for me, is really pinpointing exactly the right language to use and within the word count to get my ideas across. And that does take time. that's the bit that really takes time for me when I'm writing grants, is to how do I pinpoint exactly what I want to say within the word count. And I think, as I said before, making sure the support material is all organised, making sure everyone's on board with the program and the project does take time, and it's not something that you can rush, and it takes a lot of discussion. You need to go and talk to people and see people and actually spend time discussing your project. And I think that that's really important, and also providing enough time to get your support material together. I think that that's really important, making sure it's high quality video or high quality link on Vimeo, making the PDFs, ensuring you've got all the information for artist biographies, and ensuring that the budget is going to work, because that does take time to make sure that you do get the correct information. And the detail, I think, is really, really important. Making sure that each of your budget lines make sense and are very clear and are linked to something. So even if it's accommodation and you're not exactly sure where someone's going to stay, finding something that's comparable to what is going to be the case. So then there's an actual real figure in there that makes sense. So I really, if anyone's applying, make sure you give yourself enough time. I'm always someone that likes to have the grant written earlier, and then I've got time to finesse it rather than leaving it to the last moment. Really ensuring that all the details are there before the last day to submit. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I agree with everything. The last thing that we had together was the support letters. So I think, yeah, making sure that you're not like racing the buzzer at the end there with your support material and support letters. I also think my biggest tip is don't be afraid to reach out to other people that have written grants before or have been successful. That's what I did. I reached out. I wasn't confident in myself, and I reached out to someone who had written grants before, and they kind of helped me craft everything that I had. So yeah, I would say just reach out for help if you're not sure. Even reaching out to Create New South Wales. These guys are super responsive. So I would say if you're stuck or if you're not sure about the direction to go in or anything, or not sure how to frame something, then definitely don't be afraid to reach out to people that might be able to point you in the right direction or clear up any confusion for you. And yeah, just getting things together early is the biggest tip I can give, because for me, the budget was probably the hardest thing. Sitting down and trying to work out the cost of things that are happening in the future and could change potentially is really hard. And I think, yeah, giving yourself time is key.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Those are some great pieces of advice there, especially around timing. And we do get a lot of sort of questions and things around fitting into that word count in the application. So great to get your reflections on that part of applying. Oh,
I
your
just
hand
had
up,
something.
Chris.
I think it's really important to get somebody else to read it, because sometimes when you're writing something a lot, and it's exactly what you said, is that you're writing it, but maybe it doesn't make sense to somebody else who's just reading it for the first time. So I feel like that's a really important part of the process, and giving yourself time to allow that to happen, to just provide somebody with the document and say, do you understand what I'm trying to say here? Does it make sense, and is it clear?
Yeah, so critical. Peer reviews, great. And that's really great to hear how you both sort of use that when you're going through the process. On this next point that we've got here, we're going to look at the key priority areas with Create. So the assessment process considers priority areas, which are up on the screen at the moment, at the final stages of assessment. So it's those key priority areas, New South Wales Aboriginal people. If you're working with Aboriginal people, please refer to the Aboriginal Arts and Culture protocols, which are up on the site. People from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, people with disability or who are deaf, young people, people living and or working in regional New South Wales, and people living and or working in Western Sydney. It's not compulsory to engage with priority areas. However, we do value the importance of diversity and inclusion. And if you're considering working with diverse communities, make sure that you consult and provide evidence of that consultation and self-determined strategies. And as well, there's fact sheets, as well as the Aboriginal Arts and Culture Protocols ones. There's working with children one that's up on the site as well, and webinars such as this one that's looking at engagement with young people. There's also, we've been making many other webinars for priority engagement across each of those priority areas that we went through up on the screen. And I wanted to ask you, Cadi and Hollie, about how you addressed priority areas in your application. Your projects have been noted for the engagement with young people. Did you engage with sort of other priority areas as well, or just wanted to hear about engagement from you.
Well, Catapult's based in Newcastle, so everyone that we employ lives and works in regional New South Wales, which is great. And we're accessing young people in regional New South Wales. And one of our points was to provide young people in our area, which is quite broad, to be able to have the same access to professional arts experiences as other people in capital cities. And part of our program includes viewing a professional performance, but also then being a participant in that through workshops and creativity to be able to engage. Everyone we work with obviously has to have a working with children's check because we will be working with young people, and I think that's really important to outline that's crucial to what we're doing, is to ensure that if you're working with young people that they have the right checks. And obviously, because we're in Newcastle, all of the people who are working here, our organisations, the young people that we'll reach, our professional performers are all working and living in regional New South Wales. So I guess that's how we fulfilled the criteria in that way.
Cool. Awesome. And Hollie, do you have any reflections on addressing that priority section in the application?
Yes, and my audience is predominantly young people, and again, with like analytics and things like that, I'm lucky enough to be able to pinpoint that pretty easily. So it's around 18 to 24 is kind of my main audience and the main people viewing my work and listening to my music. I also, am engaging people that are living in Western Sydney, and then also recording up on the Central Coast. So a lot of the work is done outside of the main city. So but the majority of my emphasis is on young people as a wide audience, generally speaking.
Wow, fantastic! Thanks so much. Great to hear that you looked at those sections in your applications and delivering to those areas across the work that you do. With the young people include here, sort of if people are looking at addressing that section in their applications, might be worth highlighting here that, like, for the purposes of Create New South Wales, that definition, young people under 25 years of age, so that's either if you're under 25 years of age as an applicant, or doing work that is targeted or focused towards people in that age group. And yeah.
We've already discussed a little bit prior in this webinar about support material and its importance to really strengthen your application and tell the story of your project and who you hope to engage and the outcomes. So as part of the application, you are required to submit relevant and current letters of support and or confirmation letters from partners, supporters, and or collaborators. These letters should champion you as an artist, group, or organization, and or the project or program you hope to deliver. Up to 5 documents can be uploaded in this section. I know we have spoken a little bit about it already, but Cadi and Hollie, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the types of support material you chose to include, and if you had any advice for applicants regarding how to make this decision to best support your application.
Sorry.
No, you go. That's totally fine.
We included 3 Vimeo links to our past works that provided sort of the work we do with the young people, as well as the professional practice that we do as an organisation. So really looking at those 2 aspects of the organisation, the professionality of the artists that we're going to be working with, but also who we're going to be engaging with. I do spend a lot of time on my support material and ensuring that there's really high quality video, because I really think that helps the panel understand what it is that you do for us as an organisation. What is it that we do and who do we access? I also included an event planner of how the event would look, or the timeline of that. That included sort of the different areas in which we were going to engage, how many people we were going to engage with, in a PDF form. And as an organisation, we created a little strategic plan around the Chasing Dreams program, which is what we've called out this project. And that really outlined the strategic plan and why we want to engage with young people in this way, which is new for our organisation. We haven't done this before. I used to do it a lot in Perth, but I really wanted to outline why it was really important here in our area. So there was quite a few attachments, and I spent quite a lot of time creating the PDFs to go along with that, to really outline to the panel why we wanted to go in this direction and why we thought that this would be really important for our community. I also, sorry, one more. Also
that's fine. Go for it.
A COVID plan. So ensuring that we had some forms of how we'll go about this under this current situation, especially because this was put in last year when we were still in the heights of COVID, but who knows what will happen next. So we had a pretty clear COVID plan as well. Sorry, Hollie.
That's okay. I was just going to say, for me, there were kind of 2 types of support documents. The first was my previous work. So part of my application was recording my new EP and also creating the music video for the EP that's centered around stories for the LGBTQ plus community. And so I linked to a previous music video that was part of the music video series that I mentioned earlier, and then also an extended dialogue scene that was part of that series to show the different kinds of content that I'm creating for my audience. And then I also linked to my press kit, which is pretty much just like the easiest way to kind of hit every highlight or every point, and be able to do that concisely. And yeah, I think within the support material, it's important to kind of get, bang for your buck. You can only upload a certain amount, and so you want to make sure the support material that you're uploading is showing as much as possible and linking with your proposal or your project as much as possible. And then the other type of support material that I uploaded was letters of support from the key people that I had mentioned in my proposal. So the people that I mentioned that I would be working with were the people that I asked, obviously, to support me with letters of support. So those are the two areas, and I also uploaded a work plan, and that kind of outlined in a timeline what my plan was for the project. So just getting those key people to write you the support letters so that they can vouch what you're saying, and then also just showing previous work that can inform the board on the kind of work and the caliber of work that you'll be creating with this project if successful.
Yeah, I also had all the artist biographies. I think I said that earlier on who would be working on the project, and the support letters, making sure that you've got really high quality support letters from your partners or the artists engaged, or how you're going to go about making this work.
Great, thank you both for giving us insight into how you approach the support materials section. Now we'd like to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about your project that got funded. So, Katie, could you please tell us about Catapult's Chasing Dreams children's program, which received funding?
Yeah, so the Chasing Dreams project is a new program or project idea for our organisation, and as a mother myself, I knew how impacted my child was from COVID and not being able to go out and see things and not being able to do what he was used to be doing. So I really wanted to try and create a program that went to schools or went to a whole range of different locations. So we're creating 2 professional works that are tourable and can be transported easily across locations, so a set and all of those things that can be moved. So we can try and reach as many young people as we can. Incorporated in the 2 shows, so one's for 4 to 8-year-olds and one's for 8 to 12-year-olds. There'll be a workshop program attached to it. And an education resource, which I said earlier. And it's about trying to bring high quality professional performances and engagement to young people in the region, where they don't need to do too much travelling or leave their school environment or leave their holiday program. We can come in and perform for them, which I think is helpful to the organisations and schools, because it has been hard for them to do any excursions, but it's a way of really igniting the passion of dance in young people by coming to them. So young people who may never have experienced anything like that will get the experience of what it's like to see a professional dance theatre work and listen to stories live, which doesn't happen so much, and especially during COVID, when we couldn't hear our stories live, is really important. So it's about really providing an accessible dance experience, a dance theatre performance that relates directly to them, that's based on their lives and what their fears and what their joy is about, and really accessing them hopefully in a really unique way here in New South Wales and the Hunter region, and hopefully in time that this program will actually grow and will become tourable.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. It sounds like an incredible program for young people, and it gives them a great opportunity to engage with dance on a whole other level, I think. So congratulations again on your successful application, and really look forward to seeing how the project turns out.
Thank you. Yeah, we've done our first creative development, so we're off and running.
Amazing. Sounds so good. Now, Hollie, wanted to hear from you about your recently funded project about the EP and the music video, and could you tell us a bit about that one?
Yeah, so I had my upcoming EP and music video attached to the lead single funded, which is very exciting. And I guess for me, obviously, my music is for everybody, and music is great for everyone. And I would love all kinds of people to listen to my music and enjoy it. But I realize that it's specifically significant to a small group of people, and being gay myself and reaching uh, you know queer audiences is a massive passion of mine, and something that I don't take lightly, and something that I endeavor to do anytime I'm creating art, because I'm very aware that there is a lack of representation, and I experienced that when I was growing up. So as part of my project, it's really focused on even things like young people being able to hear the use of different you know pronouns. Like for me to be singing about she rather than he or whatever, it seems like a minuscule thing to a lot of people, but being able to hear feedback and talk to people at shows and understand how big of a thing that is for people to be able to hear and relate to, is just the greatest honor, honestly. And so part of this project is creating a music video that tells those kinds of stories, and writing music that's going to be able to impact people and young people can relate to. And yeah, that's my biggest aim with this music, obviously, to create music that's true to myself, but also to create music that can be an escape, or that can be helpful in whatever way to young people that are experiencing adversity or discrimination, or anything that makes them feel alienated from society. So to be that person to young people is, yeah, just the coolest thing, and something that I don't take lightly, and something that I want to continue doing through this project.
Oh, amazing. So good. And can't wait to hear the EP, see the videos as it comes out. And thanks so much for talking to us about that exciting work that's coming up. And for anyone watching as well that wants to keep up to date with the amazing work that Cadi and Hollie do, we've got social media up there for both. And thanks so much for speaking to us through the application process and your experience of writing um, those applications. And it's sure it'll be really valuable for people looking particularly to engage with young people through um, their projects. Was there any other last minute advice or thoughts you wanted to share with anyone, Cadi and Hollie?
I would say don't be discouraged if you don't get accepted or are successful immediately. I've applied for a bunch of grants that I haven't been successful for. So just don't, keep your head up and keep trying, because eventually there'll be something that works for you.
I guess for me is make sure that you've got a strong passion for what you're applying for. I know that sounds crazy, and all artists do have a strong passion, but really understanding where it's coming from for you, from your heart, and that's going to actually really translate on paper when you're reading it, that the importance of the project to you and why it's so important, I think, is really crucial to when you're applying.
Amazing. Both great points and pieces of advice for people looking at these applications. And that pretty much sort of wraps it up for us. A lot of the info here that is addressed in the webinar can be found in different places on the website. Make sure that you go look at the Making an Application help guide by going to the Funding and Support tab on createnewsouthwales.com. Check out some of these other webinars as well, different priority areas and funding programs that those are about. And feel free to reach out, give us a phone call or an email, book in a pre-application inquiry. We're happy to talk through any of ideas that you have for projects and programs. And once again, thanks so much, Cadi and Hollie, for joining us on today's session. And thanks so much for Marnie and David as well for Auslan interpreting, and as well as Ian and Jane, for all the work behind the scenes with bringing it all together. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.